Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Amira Davis lived a life most of us could never imagine. She was exposed as a child to horrors she carried with her for the rest of her life, but finally she found comfort through writing. The name of her book is In Memory of Saeed and Aliyah, two angels who visited us for a moment in time. Thanks for being here, Amira. Take us from the top.
My mother had killed my brother Saeed when he was 18 months. I was 3 months at the time. And she was arrested and pled guilty to manslaughter, and they let her out. And she was supposed to be on 18 years probation. Court mandated to go to outpatient, and we were supposed to have been supervised by DHS, the Department of Human Services. They were supposed to make visits to the house, checking on all of, the children that they placed back in her care custody.
I can't even believe that she was allowed near you.
Like, what the? Don't get me started. That's why I wrote this book. It's like, after we went to live with my dad, we were placed into a group home, and a year and a half of school out of my whole life, I got kicked out of school because I had behavior problems. And then, of course, it led to drinking and drugs. And, I just got tired of it, just the journey. I just woke up one day and it's like, it sounds crazy that I'm just now realizing what happened, like stuff that I put in the back of my head for years. And I just woke up and I was upset. And like, damn, no, and DHS falsified documents that they were making visits, and meanwhile, that's when my sister was, murdered by her husband, her accomplice, Charles Fox.
That's what inspired you to write this book?
It really inspired me because I was angry, realizing what happened after all the years of being on drugs and just, being sober now and thinking about how DHS never answered, no one ever got fired, and hearing about other children that had died that year that was under DHS's supervision, things like that. you
So,
know
who's Aliyah?
Aaliyah was my sister that was born 3 years later after Saeed's death.
And she was also abused
Yep, and murdered. Yes.
by your mother.
My step, yes, the abuse, but that particular night my stepfather had caused injuries that led to her death.
I mean, it says in your synopsis she was thrown in a steamer trunk and discarded underneath a bridge in Philadelphia.
Yes, the airport, the Platinum Memorial Bridge in South Philadelphia.
No wonder you had so much anger.
Yeah, I never looked at it like that. I was talking to my sister. She was like, "You were masking your pain." I always thought that was an excuse when people be like, "Oh, I used to abuse when I was younger. Oh, that's why I drank." I never looked at it like that.
I mean, not only were you abused, but you knew what your mother did.
She only did 14 years and her accomplice did 35 years.
Oh my gosh. So it must have been very therapeutic for you to write this book.
It was very hurtful because, like I said, things that I put in the back of my head, I remember her face so clearly now, how she looked and all the pain she went through, stuff that I tried not to think about for years. So when I was writing the book, I just sat here and I just started crying, like, it's like reality for me now after all these years of trying not to think about it, you know,
Yeah.
and struggling with my kids. I was a single mother, trying to keep, myself together. It was very, very hard.
I'm so sorry.
Yes, thank you so much. Oh man.
So you finally got it all out and
Yes.
all of your anger, all of your frustration in this book. What are you hoping happens next?
Man, I am, I want to raise awareness about, first of all, the Department of Human Services not doing their job. They lied and got away with it. I want to raise awareness. What I want to come out of this book is because I know a lot of parents, single parents, men or women, go through a lot with their children. I want to get a nonprofit building where, the building would be called in memory of Saeed and Leah, and a place for angels to play. And, if the parents are going through something while the children are playing, they should be able to go talk to a counselor. So when they go home, they'll feel a little better. I'm not making excuses for my mother or anything, but you never know what goes through someone's head, especially if they feel like they don't have anyone.
Well, you don't know what her mental, maybe she had mental issues.
I think a little bit of that and being evil, because she still act like she didn't do anything. She act all nonchalant about it and still lying about stuff. Now she's trying to say, "Oh, the lawyer told me if trying to insinuate that my dad did it." You know, she's just fully messing.
Is she still alive?
Yeah, she's still alive.
And you talk about how this affected you?
Yes, drinking and drugs, like in my 20s, because I went to go live with family members after I got kicked out of school, and it wasn't nothing but drugs and alcohol around me. Um, you say a product of your environment,
Right,
I guess.
right. Yet, in spite of all that, you were able to deal with your addictions and write this book.
Yes, it was always in my head, and I started writing a book, and I started writing in 2010, but I didn't know where to go from there. But one day, like 2 years ago, my husband was at work. And it's like I wake up every day and think about this mess. So I sat on my bed. I said, damn. So I Googled ghostwriters, and two people had called me back, and they started writing my book, Amazon, but they kept making so many mistakes. It was very frustrating. So I sat on my bed. Once again, I'm always thinking. I Googled, what do I need for my book to be on the big screen? And it said I needed a literary agent, and that's when I called a couple of them, and then ended up publishing with Page Publishing. It made me feel better that my story is out there. I really need people to know what happened, the failure. I can't help but to think, after my brother Saeed was murdered, that if DHS was coming to the house on regular business like they were supposed to, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe it wouldn't have happened to
Yeah,
Aaliyah. It's just terrible.
it is. It really is. It's a sad story. Are you able to talk about your book?
I just once in a while, like for an example, and I was at physical therapy like 2 weeks ago, because I'm really shy and bashful to talk to people, because we really wasn't around people until I was like 14. But I seen this guy, he was sitting there reading a book, and I took the opportunity. I said, "Excuse me," I said, "I see you like reading books," and he's like, "Yes." I said, "Would you like to take a look at my video trailer?" And you know, because I wrote a book and he read it. I mean, he looked at it. He was like, "Oh, I could get it online." I said, "No, I have something in the trunk of my car I could autograph for you, and you could pay me back next week." And he did. And when he seen me, he said, "I need to talk to you." Because it's like I see different people read my book. Now, he was a younger African American guy, he was gay. But my sister knows this 72-year-old white man, he was crying. It's like everybody that reads my book, and some people read it and say, I can't finish it. Don't. A lot of people have not finished my book. It's just so much. Even though it's a little book, but I put my book on the shelf of one bookstore. I gave him like 3 books to see how that would do. I keep getting bumps in the road, but I'm not going to get up because this is reality. And it is another story that happened like Aaliyah's. It was this boy they found in a bag, and they didn't identify him until 1994, and found out that was his mother that had killed him. It's similar stories that I know now. Writing my story and Googling things.
All right.
Hmm.
Amira Davis, author of In Memory of Saeed and Aaliyah, two angels who visited us for a moment in time. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for listening to me. Thank you so much.
Dr. Roberto Treviño Peña is a specialist in internal and critical care medicine in Texas, where he is educating kids and adults about healthy lifestyles while managing critical care units in hospitals. He was inspired to write The Four Forces of Human Nature, a unifying theory. Welcome, Dr. Peña. So, what was your aha moment, so to speak?
While I was running the intensive care units, I realized that putting catheters in people's heart is not the future of healthcare. 91% of all the illnesses are related to lifestyles. What we eat, their level of activity. And so I started writing, opened up a nonprofit research center, the Social and Health Research Center. And this center has been awarded over $24 million of National Institute of Health grants to study school health books. So I write health books from pre-kinder to eighth grade. And these health books are coordinated school health programs, meaning that there's a structured curriculum for health class, a structured curriculum for PE, a structured curriculum for food service, and another one for parents. And these curriculums have decreased glucose in children, lowered insulin, decreased obesity, improved fitness. So, but these were all school based. So I said, how do I get all this knowledge and experience and bring it out to the general audience? So that's what inspired me to write this book for the general readership. Mhm.
Where is your center?
The center, the Social and Health Research Center, is in San Antonio, Texas.
And how do you lay out this book?
Well, the book is, obviously it's about the workings of the brain. And the brain is a very complex organ with hundreds of brain structures. But I went through, kind of sieved through and realized that there's really four brain structures that have a lot to do with our lifestyles, behaviors. And so that's kind of how I lay it out into four different big sections. And so I identify the processing centers of how we think, the processing center of how we feel, the processing center of our language, and then the processing center of how we envision or we perceive the social environment. So that's how I lay it out into four big sections. And we always thought that the top of the brain, the cerebral cortex, that's where intelligence and reasoning and is the processing center. Well, let me introduce you to the thalamus. It's another brain organ that's right in the middle of the brain, and it's really the thalamus where everything occurs. And so, just to give you an example, everything that comes from the outside, first, all our sensories that we perceive through our vision, through our hearing, through even our touch, and all the other sense organs, they go to the thalamus. And then the thalamus decides where this information will go in the cerebral cortex. It decides if it lets it in or out, and it decides if it modifies it, and it decides if to alter the message. So it's really the reasoning and intelligence is in the thalamus. And
Okay.
then there's this other organ, and that one is the amygdala. That's where our passions, our feelings, and processes all our, how we feel. And that's a very important organ because that's like our first responder when there's trouble. It's the amygdala that kicks in and makes us aware of what's going on and how to react to that.
Okay.
And then the third organ is obviously the cerebral cortex, but the cerebral cortex is more involved with language. And that's where all our reading, writing, and math is stored in the cerebral cortex. And then the fourth organ, the insula, and that's the one that kind of perceives the social environment and processes the social environment. So those are the four organs, and I write this book, Alice, at a sixth grade level because I want people to understand that these four organs really can make a difference as to do we live a healthy life for the rest, of our life, or do we end up with self-inflicted, health illnesses?
You talk about these made up illnesses.
Yes, yes. So what that is, see, the amygdala, as I mentioned, is a very important organ in the sense that, it defends us. When you're walking down a path and all of a sudden you hear like a rattling sound, and your amygdala will react, make you jump away from the sound, and then later consciousness kicks in, and then later, reason kicks in, and you find out that there was a rattlesnake, but it was the amygdala that made you react. But this amygdala, makes up, fantasies. For example, you walk into a room and you see a colleague and doesn't greet you, and then the amygdala takes off. Oh, what did I do? Did I make that person upset? And then you start making these fantasies, and then you start thinking about it at night, and then your cortisol levels go up, your adrenaline levels go up, and those uh, neurotransmitters will cause high blood pressure, will cause diabetes, will cause other cardiac disease. So when in reality, what happened is that one person, her husband was diagnosed with cancer. So, but nonetheless, you make all these fantasies, and you go down this road where that's going to produce all these these hormones and neurochemistries, and it is all made up. But we live a lot in these fantasies. Most of the time throughout the day, we live in these fantasies. And so that's how we, end up with these chronic illnesses, worry and stress, all those, add up to, causes of, it's the amygdala that processes these illnesses.
So, how do we
Mhm.
get a grip on that? Does this book help us?
Yes, yes, it does help in the sense that the again, our feelings are stronger than our reasoning, and so we're more passionate people than we are reasoning people. So what I try to bring in this book is, understand what the thalamus does, and the thalamus can't suppress or can't control the reactions of the amygdala. And I'll give you a couple examples. And meditation, when you meditate, all you're doing is just focusing on that organ, the thalamus. So it's like exercise. You build up, exercise muscles. Meditation also will build up that thalamus. So when the amygdala starts making up these fantasies about, somebody doesn't like me, or I didn't do well in the interview, or and so it's the thalamus that controls the amygdala. So that's very important through meditation. The other part is also, good nutrition. You are what you eat. So in the book, I explain the importance of the minerals and vitamins that are in fruits and vegetables and whole grain products. And then the third one is physical activity. And when you do exercise, you burn these stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. So the book does explain, and it's very simple explanations, Alice. You don't need join a club or expensive gym equipment. Just these items are very, anybody can practice these, what the book offers. Mhm.
So, so I'm assuming you can use your center as a place to inform people about your book, right?
We do. The center again has written these health curriculums, and these health curriculums operate in 20 school districts in Texas. It's a Texas Educational Agency approved curriculum. So these curriculums are being used in the schools. And now the adult component, the problem is not the children. Children are amazing.
No.
It's it's the adults.
Right.
The problem is the adults. So we, developed a lifestyle program for the adults, and it consists of 20 sessions in a year. And people that participate in it's called the Bienestar Adult Healthy Lifestyle Program. People that participate in this program, they come to at least 8 sessions. It has lowered their glucose level, decreased their blood pressure level, it decreased their body weight. So, and it's also lifestyles, no drugs, no medications. And so So we do that at the center. We obviously, one thing is writing a book, the other thing is, operating and showing the results of the program. So that's what we do at the Social and Health Research Center.
Okay. Are you doing book signings? Are you doing book talks?
Yes. I've been doing book signings in the state of Texas. I've been in Austin. I've been in San Antonio. I have one coming up in Houston. So right now we're in the state of Texas doing the book signings.
Great.
Correct. I grew up very humble in downtown San Antonio. So when I came back to San Antonio after my training, I trained in Chicago. So when I came back in San Antonio, I opened up my first clinic across the street where the housing projects where I grew up.
Wow.
And then I opened up 6 other clinics, in all primary care clinics in the poorest neighborhoods of San Antonio, the clinic South Alamo Medical Group. So yeah, as I was running the clinics and opening up, these primary care clinics, I was also working with children because we got to catch these illnesses very early age, and that's what we've been doing.
Great. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Roberto Treviño Peña, The 4 Forces of Human Nature, a Unifying Theory. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you, Alice. Okay, bye-bye.
Sahar Atif was born in Afghanistan, and through her book, Bakery and Poetry with Sahar, she brings a whole new perspective on a country once at war with America. Welcome, Sahar.
Yes, Alice. So I was 9 years old when we left, and was back in 1993. But I have family there, and my aunt is there, so that kind of like I'm still connected at some point or another. But that's what you said it as soon as you said it. That was my whole point, Alice. I just don't want to show like there's always violence and everything, and this sad news coming from there. I want to kind of show like the positive aspect and the positive side too, something like to bring joy and not just always sadness and unhappiness.
Well, what was it like there as a child? You said you moved from like
Yeah.
town to town.
We did. Back in the 90s when it was civil war, it wasn't too bad. It just like started getting bad every day. Slowly there was like bombings going on. But before this started, I remember vaguely it was all happiness too. Like me and my mom was a teacher, and we used to go to school and play in the streets with our neighbors, and it was always like guests coming back and forth. There's always like you always have like something ready to present to the guest. It's just all like one big happy memory, and then slowly it got a little bit sad and worse. That's when we left. But I mainly have good memories, to be honest.
What's it like there now?
It's okay now, because now when the Taliban took over, it was all sadness and like, oh my gosh, women's rights, of course. And that's the saddest part, because the women are not allowed to go outside, like work or have a job. But at least the only good thing is there's no like those random bombings that was going off before. That's the only thing. But of course now like women can't go. My aunt was a teacher too, and she's at home. She can't go, and her daughters can't go to school, and that's like the hard part right now.
Oh,
Yeah, it's always something.
so where did your family settle?
We first, when we got out back when we were young, we went to India. We went to Pakistan because that was the border in the 90s, and then to India we stayed for a while, and then eventually to United Nations we came to America. There's a branch of United Nations called UNHCR, and you apply and you get through interviews and everything, and eventually came to US, and we settled here. Been here for the past 25 years, I believe, in Massachusetts.
Is there an Afghan community there?
There's a small community. We are in the suburbs, but in Boston, which is, of course, the capital, there are some Afghan communities. And recently with in the year 2020, when everything fell apart again and some Afghans came, now I see some minor Afghan families around the area that I am. And so there's some families popping back and forth, and there's not many around me, but I know now it's coming slowly, some families that were recently moved from Afghanistan.
So you want to share the pastries and the sweets of Afghanistan.
That's right.
When you share a recipe, do you share a story about the recipe or?
Oh, absolutely. That's true. That's another thing, Alice, because each recipe has its own, like I was saying in my book, as you mentioned, when we were moving from one city to another and um, just came across different Afghans back then. We had different like neighbors. We had a big yard that we had rented, so some families would come and stay and rent with us, and they were from different parts of Afghanistan. So they would get together and bake some pastries and cookies, and that's how I got more exposure to those pastries and bakeries. And also, the other way that I remember is when you go to as guests to an Afghan, it's like a custom to present them with like this elegant pastries and presentation and bring tea. It's almost like a ceremonial Japanese tea ceremony, which nobody has caught up to it. I'm like, if I could present that, that would be awesome. You just bring a whole tray of pastries and sweets, dry fruits and tea. And it's just kind of like each pastry or each recipe kind of has like its own memory, like a positive one. And you get together and you just like, you forget about the craziness of the world. You kind of make these beautiful pastries that come out good and then enjoy them. And just like all the happy memories that's associated with each recipe.
What's unique about Afghan pastries? Are they different than, Italian or?
Very good question, Alice. So the thing, they're very similar, I would say, at some point, because they mainly is flour and butter and of course sugar. And that was part of my inspiration too. When I go to Italian bakeries in Massachusetts, the biggest one is Mike's Pastry, of course, and there's different pastries set up, and it kind of brought me back to memories when I was a little girl in Afghanistan. They had similar bakeries. I would go and look at different spreads and setups, and that's just kind of like reminds me of cookies back home when I went to see these bakeries, like different shapes and different sizes and mainly flour and sugar, and it just kind of melts in your mouth type of thing. And the other thing is like it's not just sweet, there's different kinds of cookies. There's some of are savory and then some are sweet, so all kinds of different.
Give me an example of, a pastry and a story that you share in your book.
Sure. So I think the biggest one is a simple sugar cookies that I mentioned it in my book too, that when I was little, we used to visit my grandparents' house. They lived in these apartments, and then my grandfather was cook, and we used to come together and make these almost like sugar type cookies that was like Afghan sugar cookies. And it was just came together nicely. So I think the biggest one that I associate with just mainly simple sugar cookies that just brings me back to my childhood memories with my grandfather and getting together and like making cookies.
How are you telling people about this?
I know my family knows about the books right now and they're very excited for it to come out. And I guess once the book is all ready and everything is set up, I can just mention it to some friends, and my siblings, they are excited to share with their friends. So I guess that's the way to go so far.
So it's bakery and poetry with Sahar.
That's correct.
So
yeah.
the poetry, where's the poetry? Does that accompany the pastries?
Oh, that's correct. So the poetry comes with, there's a piece of little poetry with each recipe, and that comes from the great poet called Rumi, and he has the actual name Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi Balkhi, but his short for Rumi, which is he was pretty world-renowned poet, and back in like past in the days when Afghanistan was big country, and he has like a bunch of poems that are very universal and applies to everyday still today. And I wanted to mention some of his poetry. It kind of like gives you a little piece of hope with each recipe. Every time I read his poetry, even if it's just a couple of lines, it just gives you like hope. And so I wanted to bring this poetry and bakery together and just kind of make it like a fun little combination. But it's not, these are not my poems at all. These are from the great poet Rumi. So I just wanted to combine these. And since he's a well-known universal poet, I just want to make sure that I can bring them together, which was always my kind of hope and idea to kind of have some kind of poetry and bakery coming together.
Great. Sahar Atif, author of Bakery and Poetry with Sahar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. It was nice talking to you.
Nick Dial helps workers understand benefits offered by their company. And if you're one of those people reluctant to shell out money for insurance benefits, Nick explains why you need to take another look. The name of his book, Insurance Makes Sense, as in CENTS, The Art of Money Well Wasted. His inspiration, an incident with a family member. Tell us about that, Nick.
Well, I had a bit of a defining moment back early on in my career. Back in 2017, my father-in-law had a stroke out of nowhere, and at that time, I was meeting with employees one-on-one. So I would basically go into like an open enrollment season with any one of our employer partners, and I would just offer them insurance that the employer was otherwise sponsoring. So in essence, I was selling insurance products. And when my father-in-law had a stroke, there was quite the epiphany that came up. And what that was his insurance was built very strategically. It wasn't built on a product. You could have almost drawn a line as to what is significant and important if this stroke actually happened, which it did. And to this day, they've needed a lot of different things, but finances are not one of them. So his income hasn't stopped. His life insurance has been established and kind of archived in a way, like it hasn't moved. It doesn't move. So any of his insurance programs were built for the purpose that if something like this happened, he was really okay. And the meetings that I was having was very transactional. People were so focused on the individual product that they wouldn't actually consider the strategy of what insurance actually offered. So kind of woke me up on that moment. It's like, hey, I need to fix this. So that's what really inspired the book, and that's what I focused the rest of my career on over the last 8-9 years, whatever it's been now.
The name of your book is Insurance Makes Sense, The Art of Money Well Wasted. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a play on words of sorts, but the idea of money well wasted is that a lot of people, in fact, it came from a meeting I had with a gentleman, and he comes up and he says, insurance is nothing but just a waste of money. It's just a big scam. Aside from the scam part, which I'm not offended by, but I certainly take an objection to, he was exactly right on the idea of wasting money. In that it's no one really ever buys insurance for the purpose of making money on it per se. So the idea of the art of money well wasted was really understanding is that when you're setting up an insurance program, you should already consider that this money is already gone, and the reason why you would part with your money is for a greater cause, a greater value in what you were setting that insurance program up for, and that's the undertone to the whole book.
So for instance,
like a disability type of program where more times than not, people have never been disabled at the time that they're actually purchasing it because they otherwise wouldn't be able to purchase it if they weren't working and so forth. Or life insurance as an example. Life insurance is another good example where something hasn't already happened to you, so why would you spend that money on something that hasn't happened? It's very experiential. So, and that's the thing, that's the challenge, is a lot of people buy insurance this way, where I say it in the book, where they buy it like they buy cars and coffee with the intention or the experience to use them. And that, by all accounts, would be a logical fallacy in the insurance world, because we never buy insurance, as I said, to use it. We only buy it for the purpose of strategy or losing out on money if this one thing happened.
So you were saying with your father-in-law, he covered all of his bases.
Correct. Yeah. So in essence, you could say, like, because he has a disability policy, he has his life insurance policy. So if you were to look at, or when he looked at his insurance needs, he realizes, I don't have $3 million saved in the bank. I don't have all my house paid off. I don't have all of these requirements that I could just walk away from or pass away now or become disabled now, and everything would be fine. Thus, I need the insurance. You
lay this out in your book as to why people should think differently about insurance.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you give examples?
I do. I kind of channel more along the kind of the fictional stories to help draw the imaginative purpose behind each principle, and then be able to explain not only the principle but its application behind it. So there's kind of this motif of a castle that I kind of draw out as a way of understanding, okay, where certain insurance programs could ultimately lie, and then reinforce that within these fictional stories and then the principles and application behind it. So when it comes to disability as an example, if you imagine a castle at large, you have your columns, you have your walls, right? It's a beautiful castle, but you also have the moat that's around it. Whenever we talk about the castle, we talk about the castle in terms of the columns and the walls as the primary fortified structure that defines the castle at all. So everything inside of the castle are things like your personal assets, the things that you're particularly proud of having, like your savings accounts, your investment accounts, your cars, your houses, all like that's the beautiful thing inside of the castle. But how do you protect the things inside of that? Your income, as an example. That's where the walls and the columns come into place, is that when you've built those things strong enough, high enough, thick enough, then everything inside of it, by all accounts, is well protected. Now, the moat in and of itself, and by the way, I should explain this, is that in the world of insurance, there's two types. A lot of people kind of imagine there's many, many types. There's really only two. There's income and there's expense management. Income are the policies that will provide you an income. Expense management keeps you from spending too much money. So the income categories are things like your disability and your life insurance, where regardless of whatever happens, without a lot of stipulations, they're going to say, if you cannot go back to work or you pass away, your income is protected. Where the expense management, health insurance, car insurance, so forth. So in the example, the columns and the walls are the income programs. The moat, which is the water around the castle, that's kind of like this initial buffer, that would be the expense management portion, the health insurance, the auto, and anything else that really you come across in terms of insurance.
Wow. Has this served you well in terms of when you work with people? I'm sure you get a lot of resistance.
What's interesting is the resistance actually came when I sounded like a salesperson. I wouldn't embellish any of this. When I started to adopt more of this, how do I help them understand insurance? I started changing even my approach to, let's talk about this kind of policy. Let's talk about disability, versus the newer one is, hey, has anyone gone over this one with you recently? Do you have a better handle on what this actually does? And more times than not, they would say no. And interestingly enough, when I would go through this process, really what the book is all the processes that I kept having these meetings from, I would take them through that idea as to, okay, so imagine it like the wall, or imagine it like an income versus an expense management. And I sold 3 times as much insurance products because I took the time to educate. I took the time to actually walk them through those examples and those analogies on how to properly set up insurance. And no kidding, I had people coming back to me saying, thank you, not only thank you so much for that, they would recite the purpose behind what they would need that insurance for in the first place. And I would meet with them year over year over year. So it's very helpful.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Now you're at a conference right now. Are you able to promote your book at a conference?
I am actually. I actually have it on the table right now. So.
So that's the way you're going to get the word out.
Yeah, there's been, so I'm from my position, I do a lot of business development from the employer perspective. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this kind of material has really served in terms of human resource departments and CEO level offices where they've actually purchased the book for their staff, and that's just fine. And normally the purpose of it was to try to help, obviously, improve the education behind the benefits that they're offering their staff.
Good job, Nick Dial.
Well, thank you.
Insurance Makes Sense, The Art of Money Well Wasted. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alice. I appreciate it.
Alice Marie Allen is taking a break from teaching. She got her doctorate in educational leadership, and now she's writing. The name of her first book, Love, Live, Forgive, The Beauty of Life Arcs Toward Forgiveness. So what I'm gathering from your background here, I guess once a writer, always a writer, huh?
I've always written ever since like the early years of school. And so like, I was married for 15 years, but the marriage ended. But we have 2 beautiful sons, 18 and 21. And during the marriage, when we were having hard times, I would sit up in my room before bed and write. I would just write, constantly write. And I started, I went to a writer's conference that really inspired me because it taught me about the business of writing, like how to self-publish, and or if you want a book deal or a query letter and all this stuff about that people don't really realize until they like go to a writer's conference. um the business of writing. And so I began to write. I said I was going to write my book, and I started brainstorming in my journal. And the book started in my journal, handwritten, and an outline.
So the end result was love, live, forgive, the beauty of life arcs toward forgiveness.
Yes. The book is it features the word forgive, but it one of the sayings in the book, it's like it transgresses throughout the book, and it says the beauty forgiveness is like learning to love yourself all over again, knowing that the very worst part of you is good again. And then towards the end of the book, it says, forgiveness is like learning to love yourself again, knowing that you let your heart heal by giving someone else grace. And so it almost gets more complex, but it's like, I love that line so much because we don't use that term a lot in society, grace. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious word, but it is a Christian word. And it's the idea that you you find the humanity in a person, and you don't necessarily have to have the same relationship with them because of what they did. You can put up a boundary, but you can give them grace, you can give them humanity, that they're a person, and maybe they made a mistake. And so it's very relationship based, the book.
All right. So tell me about Grandpa Isaac.
Who's a Southern Virginian Black man who fought in Vietnam. And so his plight is like he carries the memories and the history of Vietnam. And the granddaughter, his is Shirley, and she's a mixed race child. Her mom, the grandfather's daughter, Sequoia, married Alex, who is a white man.
Okay.
And they all live in the same house. And so there's just little tits for tats, because it's kind of like reverse racism in a way. Like the grandpa Isaac is a little leery and suspicious of this white man with his daughter.
Right.
And so it's kind of reverse a little bit. And so it's kind of he's funny about it. It's not like do or die serious racism. It's like where is this coming from?
Right.
Like, like people are surprised when they hear a Black man take a dig at a white man.
Right.
It kind of touches on little issues like that, though, like interracial families, but it doesn't blatantly talk about the issues. It just shows them through the relationships. It's a very relationship book.
Well, you talk about the little girl going through trials and tribulations of the modern world and cyberbullying.
The plot or the story is the Shirley and the grandfather have this everyday relationship that they talk to each other, they play games like checkers and cards and stuff like that. And the plot is about the girl Shirley, really. And
Okay.
grandpa is the wisdom. And Shirley is a 7th grader. She goes to school. It's like a performing arts school little bit. And she was going to enter the talent show. And she's a very good dancer, almost like professional dancer, because she's danced ever since she was young. And they were going to go into this talent show. And then the friend that she was going to go in the talent show, she kind of betrayed her in a way by being part of a cyberbullying. And so the little girl has to deal. She's the sweetest person you ever met. And then someone throws her under the bus. And so it's like her journey of, what do I do when someone pulls the rug from underneath you? And so sometimes when you have a best friend, it's like your only friend, you know? Like you know how girls are? She's my best friend.
Oh, girls are
And so
horrible. Girls are
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. And so from there, so there's a talent show. There's this hurt in Shirley, and she talks it out with her grandfather. And the grandfather all of a sudden is getting sick. And so it's dealing with the grandfather's not always there for her as much as he could be. And the dad has a promotion at work. The mom just got an art deal, like she's an artist. And so it's like a roller coaster ride. It's not like a plot heavy, like, someone gets murdered, and it's not like that. It's like everyday relationships, and then this like sullen sulk of hurt for a child.
Yeah, it sounds like a good book for tweens.
Yeah, it is, but it's really a family book. It's 35 pages. I don't know if you knew it was that short. It's a novella, and it really is a family book. It is all ages. It's a healing book. We don't really talk about that, but like there is a way of writing that puts closure in people's lives of hurt. Like, so it's like sometimes like the mirroring of something in your life is in a book. And when something resolves in a book and it mirrors your life, it makes you think, how do I resolve what's going on in my life? It is a catalyst and a healing book.
All right, so tell me what's next.
I have people in my life who are like open books of advertising. And so like the internet is amazing. But I did also like go to a local like market street and sit outside in the summer and like kind of handed out my book and lowered the price for $10. And that was some of the funnest time of my life.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like street art. It was kind of fun.
So maybe you'll do that again.
Yeah.
Live, Love, Forgive, The Beauty of Life Arcs Toward Forgiveness by Alice Marie Allen. Thank you for talking to me today.
Yeah, no problem.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Reader House Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.